for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to Pekin Community High School. We're here today for a regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. And Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Allison Drini.
Here.
Vera.
Here.
Dolheimer.
Here.
Howard.
Here.
Huey.
Here.
Wrigley.
Here.
Hill.
Here. All members of the board are present. We do have a quorum, so we'll begin with the approval of minutes. Those minutes being the regular board meeting of July 24th, 2017, the closed session regular board meeting of July 24th, 2017. This time, looking for a motion. Motion by Mrs. Hoheimer.
Second.
Second by Mr. Huey. Comments or corrections to the minutes? Mr. White, would you call the roll?
Holheimer.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Allison Drini.
Aye.
Vera.
Present.
Howard.
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Moving on to communications, public comments, and participation, starting with board applause. We'll start that with you, Mr. Barra.
Thank you. I'm probably going to steal everybody else's thunder, but I'll keep it short. We toured the building this evening before the meeting and saw the newest changes that have taken place, and very nicely done by all involved.
Thank you very much. Mr. Alessandrini?
I will echo those comments as well. Also, congratulations to all our athletic teams that are off and running for the fall season.
Thank you.
I also echo Mr. Vera's comments, but the Learning Commons is phenomenal. If you haven't had a chance to see it, get up there and see it.
Mr. Wrigley?
Yeah, I will echo everybody's comments, particularly pointing out the fact that the Learning Commons, the technology that is present in that area of the building is fantastic. It beats many private and public sector colleges. And so that's something we have to be proud of, and especially the amount of effort that our team put in planning that out. So well done to everybody involved.
Thank you very much. Mr. Huey?
Ditto, of course, but I'll make comment about the HVAC system that was completed for the upper part of the campus here, and what we anticipate saving with that and the efficiency. And the thing that amazed me was that the system they took out was put in 1964, so I think we got our money's worth out of that one.
Thank you very much. Mr. Howard?
I'd just like to take this opportunity to say welcome back to our faculty, staff, students, and administrators for what we all know will be another great year here at Pekin Community High School. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Now, moving on with our student council report, Katie.
Good evening. Over the summer, Student Council was just as busy as normally. To start, we held an event at Double D's for our new freshman representatives so that they could get to know our advisors and the executive board. Along with that, we threw a pool party for the entire Student Council to kick off a successful year. And finally, over the summer, we helped put together a Jimmy John's lunch for all of the faculty and staff at one of the Institute days. Also over the summer, Exec Board met and began planning the Easter Seals Blackout game, which is September 15th. We went to businesses asking for sponsorships and raised about $3,000 from those sponsors. T-shirts will be going on sale starting next Monday for both the students and the community. We raised about $13,000 last year, and we hope to meet that goal again this year. The next event on our agenda is homecoming. We sent out a list of possible themes to fifth hour advisories so that students could vote for this year's theme. We are having a meeting tomorrow with the entire student council to assign committees for planning the Spirit Week, class games, parade, and of course the dance. And that about sums up what we've been doing and what we held over the summer. And I'll see you guys all again next month.
Katie, I'm curious, when you had your party for everyone, where did you have it and how many kids did you have?
It was at the Pekin Country Club. It actually kind of ended up raining towards the end, so there was probably almost 30 people that showed up, but it did get cut short due to the rain, so.
You got to see how flexible you are. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. Thank you. This time we'll move on with public comments. If anyone wishes to address the board on a non-agenda item, they may do so at this time. Just come up to the podium, say your name, and the reason for being here, and you'll have 5 minutes to present. So if anybody wishes to present, they can step up at this time.
Good evening. My name is Randy McDaniels. I'm here to talk about PCHS Swim. My wife, Kendra, and I are Pekin High School graduates, longtime tax-paying residents and business owners. As many of you know, we represent many swim parents that are here in attendance, as well as many others that are not. And we're just basically just showing some general concern for the quality of the new coaching staff that is currently being considered to be put into place tonight. Of course, they've already started. Our statement tonight is not in any way a personal attack on either one of those coaches, and we want to fully support and help them. While we know that there are only a few weeks between Coach Mitch Richards' resignation and the start of girls' practice in early August, the choice of giving the job to a teacher with very little experience or knowledge of the sport is great cause for concern. Oftentimes, the right candidate is not just sitting out there ready to be hired, we all know that. In some cases, it takes months to find the right coach. The situation we're in now is that there is no one available to train these coaches, because neither one of them have any experience or really substantial enough experience to understand really how to coach the team the way we're used to seeing. Therefore, our first meet was pretty embarrassing, which occurred this past Saturday. The relay lineups had junior varsity swimmers mixed with varsity swimmers, top swimmers only swimming one event, one individual event, only 6 lanes being used instead of 8. Many swimmers weren't allowed to swim their top events. All of this ended up causing us to finish 3rd in the meet to 2 lesser teams. To draw an example, this is an equivalent to having the starting quarterback of our football team play nose tackle and only having him play 2 quarters of the game. None of us saw that happen Friday night. The football team had great success. In addition, there was no one available to help get the outdated and malfunctioning timing system up and running. So Coach Seeley and Coach Oliver were forced to use stopwatch times for an official IHSA meet. Again, that's pretty embarrassing. As you consider confirming Coach Seeley as head coach tonight, we simply ask that you consider an interim tag and insist that PCHS administration continue their search for a qualified head coach that can lead this program that was just starting to build momentum from the Tremont Co-op that was established last year. Increasing the coaching salary might also be a consideration. It often seems as if PCHS teams only excel if we get lucky enough to have a past graduate come back and teach at the high school or volunteer to coach at a very low wage, just like Coach Mitch Richards did. This won't always be the case, and these student athletes with possible Division I scholarship futures deserve better. We have girls crying. We have boys quitting, or in one case, not even choosing to swim their freshman year. And I believe that boy is represented tonight with a parent out at attendance. So certainly not a good situation. I'm sure none of you would like to see that. Again, all we ask is that the high school continue to look and actually advertise the position externally rather than just posting it internally. And have the current athletic director do some networking in the swim community to try to find someone better eventually. We're not expecting this to be solved in 5 minutes. We understand it's not that simple. We also would hope that the upcoming search for a new athletic director be treated in the same manner, and that fresh external candidates be considered. In other words, actually advertising the position statewide or even beyond, since of course we all know that position's a $90,000 plus position. So a very valuable, very big decision, obviously, that you all have with that position coming up this next year. So one final note I do want to make that Coach Chris Dunn, who has coached many years for Pekin Water Dragons in the summer, has offered numerous times to help these two coaches. They have not accepted her help, not in any negative way, just haven't accepted her help. And if they would at least accept that help, then I think a lot of these situations might be a little better. And she's not asking to be paid. So we're just here to represent some general concern about a program that's very important to us all and very important to the kids. And if the opportunity is there and the fire is supposed to be within, then we got to make sure the opportunity is there and that we follow through. So that's all I have to say. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the board on a non-agenda item? Okay, moving on to item number 4, the approval of claims.
Mr. President, I move for the payment of the monthly warrants in the amount of $2,793,315.83 per detailed information found in the agenda and some summary information as well.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alessandrini, second by Mr. Wrigley. Questions or comments? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Alessandrini.
Aye.
Ridley.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Holheimer.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye. Motion carries. Monthly warrants are approved. Next item will be under new business, request for closed session regarding the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity, the setting the price of sale or lease of property owned by the public body, and litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the findings shall be recorded and entered into the minutes for the closed session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wrigley, second by Mrs. Holheimer. Questions or comments? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Ridley.
Aye.
Holheimer.
Aye.
Alessandrini.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye, motion carries. We'll be back from closed session shortly. Back from closed session. First item of the agenda after our closed session is 5.2, the consent agenda. Is there any items that a board member wishes to pull from the consent agenda? This time I'd be seeking a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Wrigley, second by Mrs. Holheimer. Questions or comments on the consent agenda? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Ridley.
Aye.
Holheimer.
Aye.
Alessandrini.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item will be the Illinois High School District Organization dues for 2017-2018. Dr. Owens.
So every year we come before you for a recommendation to continue to be part of the Illinois High School District Organization, which is a lobbying group that supports and represents high school only districts. There's not very many of us in the state. So we come to you tonight for the sole purpose of also recommending approval to pay our dues for this organization in the amount of $920.80 as presented. I somehow got nominated to be on the board of this organization because Mr. Tepke has retired from Metamora. So you're looking at a board member, which is, I don't know, a little disconcerting to me, to be honest with you. But we would like your support in terms of continuing our membership in that organization. I think it's definitely a worthwhile organization to be a part of, especially with everything that's going on and not going on in Springfield lately. So.
You heard the recommendation from the motion by Mrs. Holheimer, second by Mr. Howard.
Dr. Owens, how good's your memory? Weren't we instrumental in the formation of this organization?
I think Joe has the background on that.
Dr. Schwab.
Yeah, but I couldn't remember how far back it was.
Yes, it was Dr. Schwab.
It was. Oh boy, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. White, would you call the roll?
Holheimer.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Allison Greenie.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye, motion carries. 5.4, additions to the roster of the 2017 PCHS graduates. Dr. Owens.
We had 2 additional graduates that we wanted to bring forward to you tonight. One was actually a student who was educated outside of our district, was a Pekin High student though, so has received a Pekin High diploma, and another one actually was a miss on the list that we presented last month. So we would make approval or recommend board approval to add John Riley Moore and Timothy Earl Van Duzen to the list of 2017 graduates of PCHS as a matter of record as presented.
Motion by Mrs. Hoheimer,
Second.
second by Mr. Wrigley. Questions or comments? Mr. White, would you call the roll?
Hoheimer.
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Allison Greenie.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye, motion carries. 5.5, presentation of the tentative 2017-2018 budget. Mrs. Schaefer.
Oh, this is going on its own. You should have it in your, here we go again. I know, it's gonna go before I get ready to talk. So we'll go ahead and start out by talking about our results from the 2016-2017 fiscal year end. We actually just had auditors here last week, so these are unaudited numbers. However, they were here last week, and hopefully we'll present the final. Well, let's see if it stays there. You should have the electronic copy in your board agenda too. Okay. So we'll take a look. So this is our operating results as of June 30th, 2017 with the education fund, O&M fund, transportation, and working cash. You can see there the change in fund balance at the, for each fund. So we'll talk about the education fund first. We actually ended up with a positive number in the ed fund of $688,000. The majority of this was a result of health insurance being less than what we had anticipated. We did amend the budget, if you remember, and so we had accounted for some of that, but when the final numbers came in, the claims were actually still a little bit less than what we had anticipated. The O&M fund, we have the deficit of $510,000. That was about $124,000 better than we anticipated, and that was due to salaries coming in a little bit less, as well as health insurance that came out of that fund, as well as some timing with project costs. So still in the deficit though in the O&M fund of $510,000. Transportation fund, we had a deficit ending of $201,000. That was anticipated. The budget number was about $252,000. If you remember, I'll talk about this in a little bit as well, that we were short our mandated categorical payments in that fund. We only received 3 payments in FY17. And 2 of those were actually for FY17 and 1 was for the previous year of FY16. Working cash, we have a deficit of $402,000, but that was anticipated. As you remember, we passed a resolution to move the $425,000 in accumulated interest to the ed fund, so that was expected. So overall, in the operating fund, we are at a deficit of $426,000. For the non-operating funds, this is kind of crazy. So for the non-operating results, we have the IMRF fund and debt service fund, TOR, capital projects, and health, life, safety. The majority of the activity in these funds is obviously in our health, life, safety fund, where we have our bond money. We spent about $6 million in FY17. That included obviously all of the HVAC work that we paid for last summer in July of 17, along with payments that were made for the G Building HVAC project that happened prior to June 30th. Because if you remember right, a lot of that project started early because they were able to work in the basement, and so a lot of work was completed over the winter, and so that came out of the FY17 budget as well. And then there was also some dollars that were spent in the Health Life Safety Fund for the remainder of the payout for all of the E-Building piping project. So we ended in the Health Life Safety Fund in a deficit of $6 million, which obviously we anticipated as we continue to pay down that bond money. We'll get into now the 17-18 budget. I had this slide in here, and this was from about 3:30, and it's old news now. So I'm not even gonna play this little video. This was a video.
Hello, this is Michael Jacoby, Executive Director, Illinois ASBO.
This is just doing its own thing. He's the Executive Director of the Illinois Association of School Business Officials, and he had put a video out to kind of explain what was going on in Springfield today, and like I said, this was about 3:30. 7:30 tonight, we just got an email, and this is all around Senate Bill 1. So just to back up a little bit, Senate Bill 1 is the new funding reform for basically they're taking the old funding formula for general state aid, and they've worked for a few years now on an evidence-based funding formula. So Senate Bill 1 was that formula. So it's gone through the process of the House and the Senate, then the governor made changes at the last minute to that, so then it was vetoed by the governor. They came back, had some compromise on this bill. Those compromises were leaked, but the majority of that compromise had to do with $75 million being of tax credit given to donors for people who set up scholarships for private schools, and so that was a major point. And then there was also a major point in there about creating taxing bodies to have to have a referendum if they're 110% of their adequacy target. So those were the two major sticking points that most of the associations that have to do with school districts were opposed to. So the House met today. The House, I think originally, before we came in here, what I read was it failed. Something happened and they met again, and now it has passed. So as we sit here tonight, it looks like those two major points of that compromise are now going to be part of this formula. So what that looks like at this point, I mean, we don't know, and what that's going to mean, where that $75 million is going to come from. There's also a piece of that with the Chicago Public Schools and their pension, and I think that was around $40 million. So I think there's still some things up in the air. I think the one thing we do know, though, is obviously there is a new funding formula in place. What that looks like for the high school, and I'll show you in a minute. We went ahead and just budgeted for what we received last year, not knowing up until now what that was going to look like. Preliminary numbers that came out showed that the high school would get about $173,000 more from the original version of Senate Bill 1. What we do know is, though, that they've said they'll hold every school district in Illinois harmless, so we shouldn't receive anything less. So we've taken a conservative approach and budgeted for what we got last year in general state aid. So if you look at, let me get back to the slide there.
Carla, the Senate has not passed it. They will vote tomorrow.
Okay. So it's just past the House.
It's just passed the House. It passed the House
And I
on
think, no, it's-
73 to 34.
Yeah, and originally it failed by 25
2 votes
votes.
over the required number.
I think the Senate, what I read is the Senate intends to pass it.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's probably, I think the House would have been the only chance of it not passing if that was gonna happen. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the education fund. So if you look at, actually I think I'm on this, I'm sorry, this is totally getting me. There we go. Okay, so here's the overall budget for 17-18 with the operating funds. So again, we're looking at the 4 main funds. I'll talk more specifically about the education fund and the O&M fund because those are the two obviously major funds that have the most activity. So as we sit today, we're looking at a net deficit in our ed fund of about $487,000. Our O&M fund has a deficit of about $775,000. So overall, between those 4 funds, it's a deficit of about $1.2 million. And I'll talk a little bit more about each revenue source in the ed fund. So the major sources that fund the education fund are property taxes. We rely on heavily on property taxes at Pekin High School. General state aid is what we're now calling this evidence-based funding formula. That's how they're going to distribute state aid. can tell on the graph, like I said, it obviously looks the same as it did last year because we accounted for that to be the same amount. Corporate personal property replacement taxes were also a major funding source for the education fund, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. That was some more bad news we received last week. And then other state revenue just makes up the mandated categoricals that the state's obligated to pay us, like for transportation and special ed, driver's education, things like that. And then federal revenue makes up basically our title grants and our IDEA funds that are related to special ed. So for property taxes, we were limited, if you remember, in December when we passed the property tax levy, that's what affects our 17-18 budget. So when that was presented in December, we talked at that time, because we're a PTEL district, we're limited to 0.7% increase. So that was about $110,000 cap in the ed fund. So new revenues for the ed fund from property taxes was about $110,000. Preliminary figures for the 2017 levy are positive, a little more positive than last year. We're looking at a CPI increase of 2.1%, and we've received EAV numbers and new property figures preliminarily from the assessor, and those have slightly increased. General state aid, that's what we talked about just a little bit ago with Senate Bill 1, and so I won't go into that anymore. Corporate personal property replacement tax. So this is something that came out, I think it was last Thursday or Friday. I was trying to finish up the budget, and things were looking pretty good. I thought, okay, we're balanced, and I think we're going to be able to present a budget that looks potentially like we're going to be in the black. And then the estimates for the corporate personal replacement tax came out, and they were really, really bad. So for us, what happened was we're gonna lose about $1 million in replacement tax this year. And specifically in the ed fund, that's about $788,000 less than we had last year. So the Department of Revenue puts out estimates on their website, and so they've given a list of reasons as to why we're gonna receive less money. It's about a 23.84% decrease overall in the state, which is about $1.5 million. So a lot of that's related to weak domestic profits. But most noticeably for schools is the Public Act was passed a while, it's been a few years ago, I think it was in 2011, where they started allowing the state to skim money off replacement tax dollars. And that's starting to happen even more. And so what happened this year is they've authorized $297 million in expenditures out of that replacement tax fund for FY18. And that's going toward things like state attorney's appellate office, the state board of elections, judges, elected officials, things like that. So we're starting to feel that now. And so unfortunately that coupled with the fact that, we have the decrease in domestic profits, it was a major hit this year to replacement tax. So that took about $788,000 out of our education fund. The other state revenue I talked a little bit about, the mandated categoricals. Last year we're supposed to receive 4. So what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to get one in September, December, March, and June, one each quarter. Last year we received 2 from FY17 and 1 from FY16, so it's been behind for several years. In this year's budget, we did go ahead and put in for 4 mandated categoricals, assuming we get 2, the 2 that were expected to receive in FY17, and then potentially 2 more from FY18. So the budget is reflecting 4 mandated categorical payments for FY18.
Unplug that touch.
What's that?
You want me to unplug that?
Yeah, could you mind? Well, I don't even know, where I'm at now. Thank you. This is just kind of a visual, so I just thought I'd show you what I see. So when I go onto the Illinois State Board of Education, and you can
put in your, what they call your RCDT number, which identifies us as a school district, and then you can put in what payments you've received for the fiscal year. So unfortunately, this is what I see, that no results are found because we haven't received any money. So it's kind of hard to budget. I was telling them today, this is the 11th time I've presented the budget, and this is by far the most frustrating year. It's just hard. It's hard to put a budget together when you have no idea what's going to happen. So anyway, this is what I continue to see. There's nothing out there. The other frustrating part about it is we actually have a budget in the state of Illinois now this year, but now they're not releasing any money. So this is what we see. No payments have been made. I think this is probably maybe one of the first times ever that general state aid hasn't been released. Typically, even though schools have been protected and even though the state is in horrible shape, state aid was always something you could rely on, and we should have received 2 payments already in August, and we obviously haven't received anything. So this is just kind of a visual of what, and anybody can search that, but that's what you see right now. A whole lot of nothing. Okay, so expenditures, we'll talk a little bit about that. Obviously, salaries is the major expenditure in our education budget. We're down by about $133,000 from last year. If you remember, per our teacher contract, they received a 3.5% increase in 17-18. We did work really hard this year to try to balance the budget, which is we saved about $600,000 in salaries by really taking a hard look at what needed to be replaced and what didn't need to be replaced. We did end up replacing 7 teachers and we added a social worker. However, we did not replace an administrative position. We did not replace 9 different teaching positions, and we also didn't replace a clerical position. So in doing that, we saved $600,000. So had we not done that, and you look at our ed fund deficit right now of $489,000, we would have been over $1 million in the hole right now. So unfortunately, we worked really hard to try to balance the budget, and then, one fell swoop, it was gone. So that's frustrating. But we also asked all of our departments to work really hard at even cutting their budgets for services and supplies, and we asked them all to cut those by 10% this year, which everyone worked diligently to do. And so, every little bit has helped, but you'll see those graphs look a little less, some are a little bit less. Purchase services is a little bit more this year. We're implementing some different things in technology to ensure our systems are in check after last year's ransomware attack. There's some things that we're working to implement, and some services specifically with Skyward and hosting some of our things outside of here, outside of the district, and just some other potential services to make sure we have additional backups, and just things that we've learned from this and things that we know we can do better. And so that's up slightly in that category. Benefits is the other thing that's a major cost in the ed fund, and you can see that graph looks fairly similar. Last year we ended at about $1.5 million. This year we budgeted at $1.6 million, so it's up slightly, but still down considerably from what we thought we were going to be at this time last year. Tuition and other, that makes up, the majority of that makes up the dollars we spend specifically for our special ed population. Last year we spent about $800,000 on out-of-district tuition costs for special ed students. This year we budgeted about $1 million for that. So that's up about $200,000 as well. We were able to also purchase Chromebooks for all of our staff through our title funds as we prepare to go one-to-one in 18-19. We're still waiting though they did finally release the application, but still waiting to get that submitted to the state for final approval on that. And the O&M fund, we'll talk a little bit about all the activity that's going on in there. Obviously from your tour tonight, you can see that we've been busy and a lot of things have been happening. The major expenditures that came out of our capital outlay in 2017 and 2018 include the third portion of the G building roof that we've done in sections, 4 different sections. So we replaced the third portion of that. Obviously the library remodel Learning Commons remodel, and then the girls' swim locker room are the major expenditures in the 17-18 budget. The Learning Commons was about a $1.2 million project. Portion of this is budgeted to in a site and construction fund. If you remember, we had some fund balance left in that fund from the settlement years and years ago, so we're going to use the remainder of that balance to pay for a portion of that project, which you'll see in the next couple slides. So that's the majority of the expenditures in the O&M fund. Obviously, salaries and benefits make up a large portion of that too, and those have, are remaining consistent. Then the budget for the non-operating funds for FY18, again, the biggest obviously budget and amongst these funds is the health, life, safety again. We are getting toward the end of the scheduled projects that have been approved by the state, and so the budget is a little bit less in FY18. We plan to spend about $1.3 million additional dollars, and that would just be the remainder of the G building HVAC. And then still working on plans to probably amend our health, life, safety plan for the remaining fund balance that's in there. And the others are pretty consistent. Debt services is obviously where we pay our bond payment. And then IRF and tort are fairly consistent as well. So in the non-operating budget, we're looking at about $1.5 million of a deficit, but $1.3 million of that is the health, life, safety expenditures.
Carla, question on the health, life, safety. We project ending fund balance of $2,000,006.
Right.
Are there any projects that are earmarked in that, or is that all over and above and we'll have to go back for the amendment?
So I think there's still probably going to be a little bit left in that, but we did come in really well on, specifically, I know the A building was about $1.5 million extra on that project, and once we finalize G building, I think we're going to see where the difference is the money that we saved in that project. So our plan at this point is Tim's working with the engineers to look at our boilers down here and our house down here for PC, and try to amend our health, life, safety plan to be able to spend those dollars, those remaining dollars out of that.
So there's really nothing of that balance, there's nothing that's earmarked at this
major,
time?
Right. So we're going to work toward re-amending that health, life, safety plan again and seeing if we can't get those dollars used for some of those additional projects that need to be done.
Okay, thanks.
And then just this last slide is just a reminder that the budget is on file in the district office until September 25th, which is when our next board meeting is, and then we'll have a budget hearing at that time. And then maybe we'll see. I don't expect a lot of significant changes between now and then. However, we'll see what falls out of this Senate Bill 1 issue, and maybe if nothing else can show a little bit more revenue coming in from the state. But other than that, we don't anticipate anything else too significant. But if there's changes, we'll definitely bring them up at that time. Be happy to answer any questions.
I know she stated it, but we had a meeting, was it Thursday morning, set to talk about the budget. We walked in and picked up the CPPRT notice, and the conversation went from one that was going to be pretty positive to one that was pretty negative. So we always commend her for the work that she does, but it is literally like throwing arrows or darts at Jello to try to figure out how to put a budget together. When you're not getting money, you don't know how much money you're going to get, and the money that we count on continues to somehow disappear at a blink of an eye. So talked to Representative Eunice. I sent emails to both him and Kaler last week expressing concern that once again, timing-wise, we're not getting general state aid, and then on top of that, all of a sudden we get a notice that our CPPRT is down by $1 million. Like, when is this going to end? So I talked to Eunice. Obviously, it is part of the skimming process that was started in 2011 and it's continuing to amp up. So it's just one more source of revenue that's not going to be a guarantee that we're going to have to deal with. It's just frustrating. It's beyond frustrating for all of you guys and for us, and to continue to have conversations with staff and explain where we're at on a budget when it's a guess and we're trying to be very conservative and keep ourselves in a range. It's amazing that the budget comes in as close to what it should every year based on the work that she's doing, which it speaks highly to what she does and how well she does it. But it's extremely, extremely frustrating on our end. So, we work very, very hard. Our staff has worked hard to cut expenses. We've had multiple conversations over the summer through attrition and who we're going to hire back and who we're not, because we very much wanted to bring a balanced budget, and we had one, and within 12 hours it was gone. So it's a lot of work on our end to then all of a sudden disappear. So I thank her for the work she does, but it's thankless.
I've been hearing conversations in the media about some school districts that are even not sure that they'll be able to open the door to start the school year, or they will not be able to operate for a full school year.
Well, that's why today was so important, because if they did not enact anything with Senate Bill 1, it was dead in the water after today. And if it was dead in the water, then you have schools, I think every school in the state of Illinois opened, but you were getting schools very close to closing and or having to take out loans just to make payroll or just to keep doors open. So,
And it's not to minimize our position, because it's like trying to operate with a crystal ball. But I think it speaks well that we're not saying that we're not going to be able to stay open all year. I think due to this district's cost-saving efforts and diligence in their financial planning, we're in a better position than the average mayor, and I think that speaks to the kind of work that goes on here.
that is correct. No doubt about that.
One of the things they've been talking about today is the adequacy target. Where do we fall in that? I mean, is that something new, or does anybody know what that 110%?
Yeah,
It's based on 27?
Yeah, I mean, that evidence-based model is based on 27 different data points. So to try to figure out and work their way through the weeds on that, it's tough. I would say we're not there because additional money should have flown. There's different tiers of that, but we were in a tier where we were expected to get $173,000 more dollars, and so to me, we're not at adequacy. That's why additional money would have been flowing to us.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a complicated formula. I think it's a good formula, but it's certainly not easy to work your way through.
it's all based on where you are in the state, so there's indexes based on where you're at in the state, cost of living, obviously. It goes anywhere from what your average class size is, to how many support staff people you have, to how many administrators in the district. There's a whole, 27 items that you have to then fill in based on your district demographics, and then it spits out what your adequacy is, and if you're at adequacy based on the funding, or if you're not, and if they need to funnel more money, or if they don't. I think that's a pretty generic way to explain it, but it's fairly complex. So I think the good news is, I think it did mean that we would get a little bit more money in the meantime, but we'll see how that shakes out.
All right, so the recommendation from the administration is for board approval to place the tentative budget on the 2017-2018, to place the tentative 2017-2018 district budget on display, scheduling up through September 25th, where we're going to have a budget hearing at that time. So looking for a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Alessandrini, second by Mrs. Hoheimer. Questions or comments? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Alessandrini.
Aye.
Hoheimer.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Wrigley.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on with reports, starting with resignations, Mrs. Hoheimer.
Yes, we have 3 resignations to report this month. Sabrina Holmes, the student supervisor, effective this July. Bryce Reese, teacher's aide for the Culinary Arts Program, effective this past July, and Jacob Weckman, teacher for the English Department, effective this past July.
Thank you very much. Moving on with Policy Committee, Mr. Wrigley.
The policy committee did not meet this month.
All right, Operations and Maintenance Committee, Mr. Alessandrini.
We had the tour of the renovated facilities this evening. We'll be meeting again once all the final numbers are in to go over those, hopefully next month.
LMRC is scheduled to meet for the first time this year on September 7th. Student Achievement Committee will also meet for the first time this year on the 21st. So FOIA requests, Dr. Owens.
Did receive a FOIA request from the Illinois Retired Teachers Association asking for email addresses of teachers and administrators, so that has already been completed. Also received a FOIA request that is in our attorney's hands, which I will report out next month.
Thank you very much. And Superintendent's report, Dr. Owens.
Okay, so lots to work through. I'll try to hit some things pretty quickly. We had a great start to the school year. It was a great start. Lots of new things to unveil. New logo, new motto, new learning commons. It's an exciting way to start the year. A couple things. Thank yous go out to some of our community agencies and organizations. If you remember, we started an organization here to help students who are not as fortunate as others and need things. And so we started last year a school supply drive that our outreach committee worked, and we were able to for the first year last year, get school supplies to those in need. This year we did the same thing. Between Rotary and Kiwanis together, just alone, they raised over $1,200. And various school supplies were donated, so huge thanks to them. We did serve over 100 students that came through on registration day to pick up school supplies that they needed. We've been trying to figure out a better way to identify students who are in need, who need specific things. So through our online registration process, there was a form that parents could fill out if it was something that there was a need that they potentially would want to be part of that process throughout the year. And we did have 513 families identify students that were in need. So now we have a better list of students who are in the building who potentially need something specific. So we're going to continue to move forward with Dragon's Closet, which is what we have up in the building, and schedule a couple days, 2-3 days a week that are actually staffed with retirees of the district to help students go through and get what they need when they need it. So we're very proud of the work that they're doing and the support that we've got from the community. More exciting news, I sent you a link on Friday. We are getting ready to launch our new website and our new app, hopefully within a day or two. So I'll keep you posted on that, but we're hoping that's seamless. The new websites, I don't know if you had a chance to click on it, it's pretty slick. It's definitely a lot easier to use, and then there'll be a downloadable app, since everybody's all about the apps, that they can download on their iPhone or their Android device, and it will link to all that's on the website at the link of an app. So we're pretty excited about that. Couple other things to just bring to reminders is we will have the dedication. We're going to plan for the dedication of the Jordan Bastine rifle range on December 2nd. That coordinates with a rifle tournament that we're actually hosting. So we're going to make sure that we have everything in place for that, but that'll be something that Mr. White will put on future agendas, but a date to maybe keep in mind. An update, couple updates. Last time we met, we talked about the potential for a charge for the homecoming parade. If you remember from the city, in terms of police presence for the homecoming parade, that is something I was able to work with the city. Actually, the chief of police and I met to talk about that. I think the idea was that there would be a charge close to $700 to $900, between $700 and $900 for police presence at our homecoming parade, something we've never been charged for before, although I think he was given misinformation that we actually were charged when we weren't. So we, through conversation, also agreed that there are times where both the city police department and the fire department use our facilities for training purposes and other things that go on that they are not charged for. So based on that conversation, we will not be getting a charge for the homecoming parade based on the fact that we, as a community organization, also allowed their use for our facilities as well. So something to think about. Talked to Eric a little bit about last week. Busing is going okay. Kind of had a rocky start to the school year. It's not all on their end. Part of it's on our end. The good thing is, I mean, bus routes ran. Kids are getting to where they need to be. There was some confusion about bus stops, getting a hold of bus stops kind of at a later time than we're typically used to, which caused some parents to be frustrated, and I don't blame them. But we're going to continue to have those conversations. If you remember, as part of the contract that we have with the city of Pekin for busing, is that we would come back and circle back around to that early this fall and start meeting to discuss what that looks like moving forward, and then make a decision whether or not we can come to agreement or whether or not we need to go out for bid for that service. So Carla and I were talking about that today with Dr. Lane from 108, that we need to probably get our ducks in a row pretty quick and have some conversations about how we want to move forward to see if we're happy with what's going on or if we need to move forward and bid that out. So I'll keep you posted on that. That's just preliminarily, since we're only in the second week of school, kind of where we're at, but that's kind of our thought on that. One thing I did want to bring up, we went to a meeting this morning with area superintendents from Tazewell and Woodford County, all concerning the county school facilities tax. That's something that Tazewell County has looked at twice. It's failed here twice. But there are several administrators and I think several boards in the area that are interested in potentially looking at what that could do for this area. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I wanted to give you a heads up that that is something that we generally as superintendents are really thinking about, trying to figure out when would be a time to push for that again. Obviously there's a primary in March with a gubernatorial race in November, which could be interesting. But anyway, so the thought is potentially to see if that's something we want to put on the ballot again. Obviously for Pekin schools, both Pekin High School and 108, would be a great amount of money that could come into the district that can only be used for school facilities. So anything we're talking about in terms of upkeep and health, life, safety, and being able to potentially abate taxes back because we're able to use this tax money for that purpose. And it's a 1 cent sales tax. Typically it's 1 cent. It just passed in Peoria, if you remember, about less than a year ago at a 0.5% and 0.5 cent. And so that money can only be used for school facilities. So I'll probably send you an email just kind of as a thought, but that is something that's on our radar. It's continued to be talk, I think, amongst us. You know, is it something that we should do again or go after again? The benefit, of course, is that Tazewell County, it's a tax on Tazewell County. So whether you're a property owner or you're not, everybody's paying their fair share. The other benefit to us is we would gain sales tax from outside of Pekin. So all of us, maybe just me, who shops in East Peoria or goes to Target or Costco and is buying things there, that sales tax then comes back, you know, per penny on items, comes back to Pekin schools. So it's a way to gain sales tax revenue outside of the city of Pekin in a lot of places that I think a lot of people in this area are going, or anybody stopping through and buying something is helping support the schools. So obviously taxes are a hot issue, but it's something that with school facilities in the area and the need to continue to look at what needs to be renovated and those kind of things, it's something that I think we probably need to continue to talk about. State funding, you got your update as of 7:30. We'll see how tomorrow goes. So we may actually get payments flowing, but we'll keep you posted on that. One question I did have for you to maybe think about is we have board policy around recognizing distinguished alumni in this district. And it is not something we've done for the last several years, even though we have board policy around it. And so I'm bringing that up to you because it would be something that we would like to start doing on a regular basis. And it is something we talked through SAC as part of our promotional and our marketing plan, how we better recognize alumni that have come out of Pekin High and the great things they're doing as a way to recognize the greatness that we have here. So we do have a process. I'll send you the application form. We talked about potentially being able to do it at a time where we would recognize that person during homecoming. So they could ride in the parade, they could be recognized before the homecoming game. It would be a big deal. You can, and we can name up to 3 annually. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I don't know if it gives us enough time to do something by this year. I don't know. I mean, we can kind of rush to get the news out, but in terms of getting a hold of alumni and some different ideas, we may need a year for that, but I want to put it on your radar because it's definitely something we want to be committed to doing in this district. So I'll send you information and kind of get your thoughts on that as we move forward, because I think it's definitely something we need to do.
Dr. Owens,
Yes.
can I take you back to the programs that involve to help our students in need?
Sure.
And would you help my fuzzy memory? Tell me about the $5,000 grant that we got from Aldi's, please.
So Ms. Vala applied for a $5,000 grant from Aldi's, and so I think what that encompasses is gift cards that we receive that we can give to students that can be used for anything. So it was a great, she did that, came up with the idea to ask if it was okay to apply for the grant. Of course, we said sure, and let us know this summer that she was awarded that $5,000 grant. So that, amongst all the other things that we're getting community support, is just another way, whether it's food or supplies or anything that Aldi's would have, it's a way for us to give those donations to students. So.
Thank you. That's part of the positive community response we've been getting, and it's heartwarming.
Yeah, absolutely. Then I'll end on a positive note. A couple of you were there, but we are excited that Mr. Eric McCann made it back safe and sound to our campus. He actually presented me with a flag that was flown on one of the missions while he was over there against ISIS. And so that flag is in this box, along with a picture of his battalion. I think I have to get all my technical terms right. But I have this here and want to present it to you guys, and then we will figure out a place that is appropriate to hang this. But we were excited to get that from him, and I'm excited to present it to you guys. So I'll let you take it and pass it around, or we can set it down and you guys can take a look at it. So. That's it.
That's it. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 7, future agenda items. Are there any items that a board member wishes to place on a future agenda? Okay. Last thing will be announcements. Just a reminder, the Fall Division dinner meeting of IASB will be Thursday, October 26th at Dunlap. There'll be more information to come on that. Housing for this year's Triple I Conference will once again be at Hyatt Regency Chicago. And if interested, please see Mr. White after the meeting here tonight for Mid-Illini Conference passes and parking passes. And then last thing is the next regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Education is right here on September 25th at 6:30. The last item of business will be a request for closed session. This request is for closed session regarding the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel of the public body to determine its validity.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wrigley. Second by Mr. Vera. Mr. White, would you call the roll?
Ridley.
Aye.
Vera.
Aye.
Allison Drini.
Aye.
Oheimer.
Hi.
Howard.
Aye.
Huey.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye. Motion carries. We are in closed session. The only other item we'll have in open session will be adjournment. So for all intents and purposes, the meeting is concluded. Thank you, everybody.